Hey everyone, I'm Toasted, and welcome to another deep dive into gaming's weird, wonderful, and occasionally awful history. If you're new here, I've already ranked every single game made on the Quake engine, the Gold Source engine, and more. You can find all of those in a beautiful playlist on my channel. So if this video makes you feel something, either rage, nostalgia, horniness, I don't judge, check that out next. Today we're starting a brand new series where I'll be ranking every single Source engine game. That's right, from Valve masterpieces to indie fever dreams to why does this even exist dumpster fires. We're doing it all. Now, a little about Source engine before we start dunking on things. Source was Valve's shiny new toy in 2004. A super flexible, moddable, physics-powered engine that gave us Half-Life 2, Portal, Counter-Strike Source, and enough memes to carry the internet for a decade. But over the years, Source also became a weird hotel for every kind of FPS. Horror zombie, zombie shooter, sword fighting sim, meme mod turned standalone, and whatever the hell Revelations 2012 was. As for the ranking itself, here's how I approached it. I mostly based the rankings on my personal experience, what I played, what I survived, and what scarred me for life. But I also factored in a bit of community feedback, user reviews and critic reception when it existed, which was rare for some of these mutants. Basically, if your favorite game ended at the bottom, just assume I had a traumatic childhood experience playing it. And just a heads up, I'm not pulling punches. If a game sucks, I'll say it sucks. This is not that every game is special in its own way nonsense. Some of these games deserve nothing but public shame and quiet removal from Steam. But if you want to support videos like this and help me suffer through more of these ranking lists, consider joining the channel. Members get early access to all my videos a full week early, priority for their video suggestions, and their names added to the credits as official enablers of this madness. Alright, let's kick off with the bottom of the barrel. Some of these are funny bad, some are painful, some made me question my life choices, and some, well, you'll see. So, I thought that maybe I shouldn't have even ranked this one. Thing is, I couldn't even play it. There's not a single picture of this game online, and there's only this one video that I put somewhere in the corner that is at like 240p and with terrible frame rate. And I found like few sentences written about the game. So I tried the game myself, that's the footage you're seeing, but you're not seeing anything, because I couldn't play it. It doesn't have single player, it doesn't have bots, I had nobody to play with, so this is as far as I got, to a screen that says waiting for more players to join. What I learned from those few sentences is that it's not a normal Source game. You know, it's soccer, but it also has melee combat, wall walking, and the kind of physics that make FIFA look like Elden Ring. So yeah, I have nothing to say, nobody has anything to say. If you ever play this, tell me more about it in the comments below. But since there's no info and I couldn't try it, last place it is. Have you ever wanted to play as lion? Or maybe a shark? Or maybe a cheetah chasing a gazelle in glorious, barely functioning Source engine jank? No? Well, too bad, because iPredator exists, and it throws you into a free-roaming wildlife bloodbath. This was a Kuma Games project tied to an Animal Planet show, because clearly nothing says educational nature documentary like press E to maul. The concept is kinda cool. Predator versus prey, survival of the fittest, 3 full episodes. But the execution? Oh boy. Imagine controlling a predator with the grace of a shopping cart full of wet sand. And the animations? You'll see more realistic movement from taxidermy. It's janky, ugly, borderline unplayable. But it's also so stupid that it loops back around to being entertaining. So, congrats iPredator. You're the worst Source engine game I could find. If you ever thought, I want to relive the horrors of World War II but with all the excitement and polish of a broken Garry's Mod map. World War II Experience was a Kuma Reality Games release that recreated famous battles that involved tanks. It's supposed to be educational, like Call of Duty History Channel Edition, but it ends up feeling more like a failed high school project. It just looks boring. Why play this if you can play World of Tanks? And level design looks like it was slapped together and hammered during a power outage. It's not fun, it's not informative, and it's not even so bad it's good. It's just bad, and that's kind of its only achievement. Imagine a multiplayer source shooter where America is occupied by Nazis, and the revolution looks like a cross between Call of Duty and a busted football match. That's National Bloodsport, a repackaged version of Revolt with Decimation. Slap with a new name and thrown into Kuma's catalog of games that technically exist. There's no single player here, it's entirely multiplayer, and good luck finding anyone playing it, unless you host a LAN party in a time machine. It wanted to be gritty, competitive, and immersive, but it's mostly just boring maps, clunky gunplay, and the haunting silence of empty servers. And yes, every map's name starts with BS, which is the most honest branding in this video. Oh yes, Revelations 2012, the unholy child of Left 4 Dead and a History Channel conspiracy theory. This game asks, what if 4 Mayan warriors with laser guns fought waves of undead in the jungle to prevent the apocalypse? The answer? Who cares? The combat is floaty, the AI doesn't work, the levels are giant empty parking lots pretending to be temples, and the entire thing feels like it was built in a weekend jam session, filled by alcohol and Ancient Aliens DVDs. Every time I played it, I felt like I was in a student project that someone accidentally uploaded to Steam. It's so hilariously bad that it's almost endearing, but only almost. 2012 didn't end the world, but this game tried. Here's one of Kuma's most ambitious messes. A fusion game that said, let's take 2 wars and mash them together in one episodic FPS that educates, entertains, and mostly crashes. World War II Vietnam is based on Shootout from History Channel, so technically it's edutainment, which is code for you're not allowed to be mad at how bad it is, but I'm mad anyway. It flips between World War II and Vietnam missions, but both feel like they were made in a Source Engine tutorial with half the assets missing. The AI is incompetent, the guns feel like plastic toys, and the level design is the military equivalent of guess where to go. It's not the worst thing Kuma ever made, but that's like saying one of the punches hurt slightly less. Dogfights is what happens when someone says, let's recreate World War II air battles in the Source Engine, and no one in the room says, wait, why? Based on the History Channel show, this game is 100% multiplayer, and trying to do dogfighting in Source is like trying to do a backflip in a phone booth. The controls feel like you're flying a sofa, the physics cry out for help, and unless you bring your own friends, you'll be battling ghosts on an empty map. It's an impressive concept with zero execution. If Microsoft Flight Simulator is a jet, Dogfights is a lawn chair with fireworks taped to it. Alright, picture this. You're in a bank heist shootout, facing off against gangsters in a gritty cops vs robbers multiplayer showdown. Except everything's laggy, no one's online, and the only real crime is how boring it is. Mobsters is a Kuma-made multiplayer-only FPS based on a biography channel TV show. It's trying to be Payday or SWAT 4, but it ends up feeling like a Source mod someone forgot to finish. You've got regenerating health, sluggish animations, AI that sometimes just don't move at all. Oh, wait, never mind, that's just the empty lobby. If you manage to get people playing, there's maybe 15 minutes of novelty here. After that, you'll want witness protection from the memory of this game. You'd think Half-Life plus Deathmatch plus Source would be a winning combo. It's literally just 3 words that scream fun. But somehow, Valve managed to release a version of Half-Life 1 Deathmatch that feels like it was assembled on a Friday afternoon, right before a company party. It's the same weapons, same maps, but with the new physics slapped on top like a duct tape on a leaky pipe. Grenades roll like bowling balls, ragdolls fly like they've seen God, and movement feels like your ice skating on disappointment. There's no new content. At the time when I was trying it, there was one server with few people, and that's it. No reason to exist, other than for Valve to say, hey, look, we used Source again. It's not broken, but it sure as hell feels lifeless. Cyberdiver is like Half-Life 2 Survivor's weirder, arcadier Japanese cousin. And I mean that in the most neon-drenched, baffling way possible. This was a Japan-only arcade FPS, where teams of anime-adjacent characters battled in VR arenas using class-based loadouts, explosive battles, and sci-fi powers. It had 6 character classes, like Psychiker and Dummy, because every team needs a designated insult. And while it actually had some cool mechanics, including ranked matches and card-based stat tracking, it was locked to arcades and never made it outside Japan. So, unless you time travel to a Tokyo Sega Center in 2010, you probably never touched it. Concept? Cool. But execution? It's unavailable. Accessibility? Literally zero. A full-on source relic buried in a region-locked hell. Oh boy, you knew it was coming. The most infamous, we swear it's canon, fan game in Source engine history. Hunt Down with Freeman is so spectacularly bad, it's almost a performance piece. Everything in this game is broken. The voice acting is an HR violation, the cutscenes look like someone's first Source filmmaker attempt after 4 beers, and the story? Whoo boy. It tries to retcon the Half-Life timeline by adding edgy military guys, skateboarding through war zones, and having Freeman kill people for fun. It's a fanfic in FPS form, but one where the author got kicked out of a Gmod server for cringe. It's glitchy, it's barely playable, and yet it's kind of legendary for how hard it faceplants. A disaster worth watching, preferably from a safe distance. Hybrid was a third-person multiplayer shooter with cover-based mechanics that was released on Source Engine and immediately forgotten by the universe. The pitch was actually interesting. Jetpack movement, cover locking, vertical gunfights. It sounds like Titanfall's weird uncle who lives in a basement. But the controls were awkward, the gunplay was stiff, and movement felt more like you were glitching through geometry than flying through the air. Worst of all, the servers died so fast, you'd think the devs unplugged them themselves. Nobody talks about this game. Nobody plays this game. It's like the SCP of Source shooters. It existed once, and we all agreed to pretend it didn't. I love Postal too. It's juvenile, offensive, ridiculous, and it knew exactly what it was. Postal 3, on the other hand, is like watching a drunk guy try to retell Postal 2 while falling down a flight of stairs. This game was developed in Russia, shipped with busted AI, broken missions, and more bugs than an abandoned Fallout shelter. It somehow manages to be less edgy and more boring, which is impressive given its desperate attempts to be controversial. The shooting is awful, the driving feels like you're staring at a wet fridge, and the writing tries so hard to offend that it ends up just feeling sad. Even the original devs disowned this thing. Postal 3 isn't just bad, it's a cautionary tale. The Forgotten Ones is a Holocaust revenge horror shooter with time-traveling flashbacks, Nazi ghosts, and the kind of dialogue that makes you wish for subtitles that say cringe. On paper, it's kind of bold, blending historical themes with horror and action, but in practice, it's a hot mess of broken AI, weird cutscenes, and pacing that swings from walking sim to doom speedrun without warning. It tries to be atmospheric, but it ends up feeling like you accidentally booted into a cursed Garry's Mod campaign. Credit for ambition, but it bites off way more than it can chew, and ends up spitting most of it back out at you in janky German. Sting is a Korean online FPS that takes the Counter-Strike formula, mixes it with free-to-play grind, and adds some light RPG elements that feel like they came from a gacha machine. It actually had a solid player base in Asia, for a while at least, but under the hood, it was just generic PvP shooting with some class perks and a ton of item farming. The gameplay is serviceable, but super stiff. The visuals are plain, and the whole thing feels like a direct-to-DVD CS clone. And the English release barely existed. It's not offensive or broken, it's just painfully meh, and it never made a splash outside its home turf. Here we are, Kuma's flagship war sim, and by sim I mean free-to-play shooter that felt like America's army with concussion. Kuma War 2 is all about recreating real-world military missions, often based on headlines pulled straight from Fox News and Google Alerts. You get episodic missions, basic squad tactics, and guns that feel like Nerf rifles in a vacuum. To its credit, it was ambitious for a freebie. You could download real missions shortly after they hit the news, like Kill Bin Laden levels, that dropped within weeks of the real thing. But the gameplay? Sluggish, janky, and about as immersive as a PowerPoint with a crosshair. It's like military cosplay for boomers, more interesting to read about than to play. Heat Reborn is a remake of an old East Asian shooter that somehow feels both nostalgic and completely busted. Gunplay swings between kinda fun and what the hell just happened. And unless you live in Hong Kong, good luck finding a server with decent ping, or any players at all. The movement's slow, the menus are weird, and the balance is out of whack. But for a few folks, it brings back fond memories. It's not good, but it's not a disaster either. Just a half-dead game clinging to life with pure nostalgia. Prospect was hyped as the spiritual sequel to Opposing Force, the long-awaited return of Adrian Shepard. What we got? A mod-turned Steam release that felt like someone built it entirely out of Half-Life 2 leftovers and wishful thinking. It plays fine, technically. The guns work, the doors open, the enemies die, but everything feels like a low-effort remix of better games. The level design is claustrophobic, in the bad way, the pacing is weird, and the story is about as engaging as a shopping list. To its credit, it's a finished playable game, but it doesn't add anything meaningful to Half-Life universe. It's the kind of sequel where you finish it and immediately forget it ever happened. What happens when you mix a budget shooter with dinosaurs, corporate sponsorship, and Kuma games being weird again? You get Dino Hunters, brought to you by Chic Razors. Yes, this is a real game where you blast dinos in episodic missions while getting stealth advertised shaving tips. The voice acting is goofy, the levels are basic, and the gameplay is dumb fun. But hey, at least it's actually fun in a Saturday morning cartoon kind of way. It's like the X-Cop of source shooters. Barely makes sense, totally ridiculous, but somehow endearing. You won't remember the plot or any of its characters, you won't remember the guns, but you will remember the feeling of blowing up a raptor while thinking, should I be exfoliating? Tactical intervention is what happens when you take one of the original Counter-Strike devs, give him a budget, and then slam the gas pedal straight into chaos. It tries to be Counter-Strike with hostages you can shove into cars, shootouts on moving freeways, and dogs, like literal attack dogs. Sounds amazing, right? On paper, yeah. But in reality, it's jankier than a Wish.com SWAT simulator. The controls feel like your character is wearing rollerblades, the AI is laughable, and the entire thing plays like it was duct taped together at 3 AM. Points for ambition, but this one's a tactical mess, and it's dead, impossible to play. Brainbread 2 is a multiplayer zombie shooter where the only thing more brain-dead than the zombies is the gameplay. It's the sequel to a cult Half-Life 1 mod, but this time with Source Engine blood splatter and 10 times the scuff. The combat feels floaty, the guns have all the punch of a nerf war, and the community, if you find one, is mostly made up of people desperately trying to remember why they installed it. It's not unplayable, but it's the gaming equivalent of a microwave pizza. Technically food, just don't expect to feel good about it. Ever wanted to experience the American Revolution with muskets, barely any people playing, and super slow gameplay? Well, Battlegrounds 3 has you covered. This multiplayer-only FPS lets you reenact historical battles using flintlocks, sabers, and bayonets. Which sounds cool, until you realize reloading a musket takes 45 real-life seconds, and the last active server is a guy from Norway yelling at bots. Visually, it's fine, the animations are even decent, but the combat is stiff, the pacing is molasses, and unless you have a group of history nerds ready to LARP and voice chat, it's gonna be a lonely tea party. Oh, look, it's Half-Life 1! But with a shiny water! Half-Life Source is the infamous port where Valve said, let's slap our new engine on the old game and call it a day. No updated models, no improved AI, no real visual overhaul. Just physics bugs and broken scripted sequences that weren't ready for Source spaghetti. It somehow feels worse than the original, and that's impressive. If you want the real deal, just play the original or Black Mesa. This version exists purely to disappoint and confuse new fans. It's like the special edition DVD no one asked for. Oh yes, Artifact. The card game that had a funeral before its birth. Made by Valve. Also killed by Valve. On paper, it was supposed to be the next big thing. A rich, strategic, multi-lane card battler set in the Dota universe, with gorgeous art and complex mechanics. But instead, Valve said, let's monetize the hell out of it, and dropped it like a hot potato when a backlash hit. The gameplay wasn't bad, the launch model was. People wanted a card game, not a stock market with goblins. Artifact 2.0 tried to fix it, but by then, the servers were emptier than Gabe Newell's announcement schedule. RIP. Counter-Strike Online 2 is the sequel to the game that proved Counter-Strike fans in Asia will tolerate anything. ONS. Built for the Korean and Chinese markets, it adds anime skins, zombie modes, and janky monetization to the classic formula. It's like CSGO and Team Fortress 2 got mixed in a cup, and then some Asian dust were sprinkled on top of it. The gameplay is fine, but the execution just feels so weird. It never found the same success as its predecessor, and it quietly disappeared. It's not the worst CS experience, but it's definitely among the weirdest. Codename Cure is like if Left 4 Dead got stripped for parts in a dark alley and rebuilt using old Source Engine assets and vague memories of military tactics. You get 5 classes, zombies, co-op missions, and a vibe that screams mod project turned Steam game after someone accidentally hit publish. It's functional, it's kind of fun in short bursts with friends, but shallow. The AI is dumber than a wet toaster, the levels are bland, and the shooting lacks impact. It's not a train wreck, but it never grows beyond its premise. This is what you play when Left 4 Dead 2 is updating and your internet sucks. This game looks like it was designed during a fever dream and somehow ends up being a very fun, short, Source Engine single-player experience. That's right, it got pulled from Steam for reasons no one fully understands. Maybe it was too powerful, maybe it was too bare. Despite having multiplayer, most people played it solo and loved it. The gameplay is fast, the movement is buttery smooth with bunny hopping and ivy climbing, and the levels feel like a Quake mod ran face first into a Hanna-Barbera cartoon and then decided to get serious. It's not perfect, weapon aiming is wonky, the final boss is kind of a mess, and you may need to break out the all no-clip now and then just to progress, but it's dripping with charm and originality. This is the kind of game that makes you look past the jank, because the creativity is just that good. It's stylish, chaotic, and a little broken. Kind of like me after finishing this list. Rest in peace, Bear Party. You were too pure for this world. IO Soccer is the kind of game you play when you've been banned from FIFA for yelling at 12-year-olds and want something more physics-based. It's a multiplayer soccer sim with no ball magnetism, no auto passes, just raw skill and pain. If you're good at it, it's surprisingly rewarding. If you suck, well, get ready to kick air while the ball physics haunt your dreams. There's no career mode, no flashy UI, and the community is, let's say, dedicated. It's janky, sure, but it also shows what Source can do when it's not just about headshots and crowbars. The Source Engine parkour scene's oldest religion, Creed's Climbing, or KZ, is all about precision jumps, b-hops, surfing, and vertical masochism. There's no combat, no enemies, just you, a timer, and maps designed by sadists with a fetish for ledges. It's oddly meditative once you get into the groove, or soul-crushing, depending on how your day is going. And while it's not as flashy as newer climbing games, it earns respect by being a real challenge, not a parkour playground for babies. No wall running, no double jumps, just raw muscle memory and broken keyboards. Bloody good time is what happens when the ship and the slasher movie has some sexy time in Vegas. You play as ridiculous caricatures like Beach Babe or Clown, and your goal is to murder your assigned target without getting caught, all while being filmed on a fake reality TV set. It's stylish, chaotic, and criminally overlooked. The problem? It had like 12 players on launch and died faster than the intern who suggested this concept to Ubisoft. Still, it's a cool oddity with a lot of charm. Like Clue, but with tasers, exploding presents, and people pooping mid-murder. I'm not making that up. Finally, a Source game that isn't trying to kill you with headshots or memes. Divinia Chronicles is a solo indie action RPG inspired by Zelda. Yes, Zelda. Made with the same engine that brought you Garry's Mod nude maps. You get real-time combat, puzzles, mana-based magic, and a surprisingly chill fantasy world. It's not AAA polished, but it's got soul. The devs clearly cared. Sure, story is not the best and UI feels like it's one step away from Comic Sans, but honestly, this is the most wholesome Source game in existence, and I'm glad it exists. No, not that kind of G-string, calm down. This G-string is a cyberpunk fever dream made by a solo developer, and it shows, in the best and worst ways. It's ambitious as hell. Wild level design, surreal storytelling, dense atmosphere, and it's all built in Source. But it's also clunky. It's confusing and has pacing like a drunk tortoise. Still, the amount of effort and sheer weirdness makes it stand out. It's like Half-Life if you smoked something before playing. Some will love it, some will rage quit after 15 minutes, but either way, it's unforgettable. Blade Symphony is Source Engine's attempt at being a fencing anime. It's a 1v1 sword fighting multiplayer game where edgy ninjas, cybermonks, and masked samurais duel with absurd flair. It feels cool, the movement is slick, the clashes look dramatic, and the community? Non-existent. But the skill ceiling is sky high, the tutorials are garbage, and if you don't know what you're doing, you'll be stylishly sliced into sushi in 10 seconds. It's niche, it's sweaty, it's dead, but damn, when it works, it's a banger. Imagine Day of Defeat, but with dinosaurs. And yes, it's exactly as stupid as it sounds. Nazis riding raptors, scientists controlling T-Rexes with machine guns, and goats strapped with explosives. This is either the dumbest idea ever, or the greatest. It started as a joke mod and somehow became a full release. And while it's janky, dated and mostly dead online, the pure commitment to the bit earns its respect. You haven't truly lived until you've screamed in German while headbutting a sniper as a triceratops. Nuclear Dawn tried to mix FPS action with RTS commander gameplay. Basically, Battlefield meets StarCraft. One player commands from above, building bases and managing resources, while the rest fight in the trenches. And it almost worked. The maps are well designed, the classes feel good, and it's genuinely tense when coordination clicks. But lack of content, tiny player base that is dead by now, and half-baked balance issues nuked its long-term appeal. Still, it's one of the more interesting multiplayer Source games, a bold swing that just didn't land. Contagion is a zombie shooter that wants to be a grittier, more realistic cousin of Left 4 Dead. Slower pace, limited ammo, actual tension, and zombies that can be played by real people after death, but for every cool idea, there is a clunky mechanic or a map that overstays its welcome by 15 minutes. It's got atmosphere, sure, but it also has the pacing of a bad Tinder date. Not terrible, but in a world full of zombie shooters, this one just kinda shuffles in the middle of a horde. Oh boy, this one's for the Sigma males and Chaos Goblins. I is what happens when you give a philosophy student a Source SDK and no adult supervision. The lore is incomprehensible, the UI is a war crime, and the tutorial teaches you nothing. But there's also hacking, psionics, mech fights, weird NPCs quoting Nietzsche, and 40 weapons that all break the game in different ways. It's a glorious mess. It's confusing, buggy, ambitious, and totally unique. You'll either uninstall it in 20 minutes or ascend to gods. Now this is the John Woo simulator you never knew you needed. It's free, it's flashy, and it lets you slow motion dive through windows with dual pistols while flipping over exploding barrels. The gameplay is shallow, the servers are a ghost town, but the style? Dripping. Every match feels like a low-budget action movie filmed in a parking garage. And I mean that as a compliment. It's dumb, it's fun, and it fully commits to the boogaloo. It has bots, so you can still try it. Style points all the way. This one is weird. It's like Deus Ex meets Star Trek meets experimental theater. You're dropped into a futuristic airplane as a mysterious player from another universe. You're tasked with solving a murder, navigating politics, and maybe preventing a conspiracy. It's mostly dialogue, with heavy roleplay, multiple endings, and some janky combat sprinkled in. The writing is bold, the ideas are big, but the execution, it's rough around the edges like a first draft of a sci-fi novel. But still, if you're into narrative experiments, this one's worth boarding. This is one of those Half-Life fan projects that makes you go, damn, why is this better than some of the other official Half-Life games? It's a short but intense ride through the dark corners of City 17 with a gravity gun that launches you like physics-defying ragdoll on steroids. The atmosphere is thick, the lighting is gorgeous, and the gameplay is shockingly crisp. It's held back a bit by the fact that it's over before your coffee cools down, but as a free, short experience, this one punches way above its weight. Imagine Clue, where everyone's British, paranoid, and armed. The Ship is a murder mystery multiplayer game where you're hunting someone and someone's hunting you, all while trying to pee, eat, and shower without being stabbed mid-sandwich. It's weird, tense, and janky, but it's the kind of jank that actually makes it fun. It hasn't aged perfectly, and you'll need a group to make it work, but when it clicks, it becomes a chaotic masterpiece of deception and dumb deaths in restrooms. Valve actually made this, for free, with co-op, and it doesn't suck. Alien Swarm is an overhead shooter where you and your buddies fight off waves of bugs like it's Starship Troopers, Left 4 Dead edition. It's slick, polished, and genuinely satisfying, with cool classes and gear upgrades that give it a nice tactical edge. But sadly, it never got much post-launch support. It's like Valve gave us a free pizza and then ghosted us before dessert. Still, totally worth checking out, especially with friends and voice chat chaos. Oh yes, Valve's response to the auto-battler trend, also known as the phase we all tried, then abandoned when we remembered sleep is important. Dota Underlords isn't bad, it's just painfully bland. The UI is clean, the animations are solid, and it functions well, but it lacks the addictive spark of its competitors, like TFT. It feels like a very polished school project from a group of tired interns who knew the genre was already dying. It's not offensive, just meh. Like Valve took a chance and then lost interest halfway through, which is, you know, very on brand. You probably haven't heard of this one, but you should. Clauseween's Treason is a fast-paced multiplayer betrayal game set in a world of Italian mobsters and murder mysteries. It mixes proximity voice chat, unique classes, and chaotic deception in a way that's equal parts hilarious and stressful. It's janky, wild, and surprisingly polished, and honestly, it puts a lot of paid games to shame. If you've got friends and trust issues, this might be your new favorite party game. Imagine if Punch-Out! And the metal band album art had a baby, and that baby grew up in a Chilean fever dream, and you get Xenoclash, a first-person brawler set in one of the most visually bizarre worlds ever rendered in Source. You don't shoot your enemies, you can, but instead you punch them in the face with elbows, knees, and bird-faced fury. It's unpolished in places, and the voice acting sounds like it was recorded in a broom closet. But it's weird, confident, and totally one of a kind. Respect to Ace Team for making this drag trip playable. Here's a recent surprise. Military conflict Vietnam feels like someone tried to make Counter-Strike with rice paddies and helicopters, and somehow it kind of works. It's old school, janky in spots, and multiplayer is totally dead, but the gameplay is punchy. The maps are solid, bots are amazing, and the devs seem passionate. It's still in early access, and it probably won't win any awards, but it scratches that mid-2000s FPS itch in a way that's more fun than it has any right to be. Valve's lesser loved child, Dev Defeat Source, is one of those games that never quite broke through, but still has its loyal trench-digging fanbase. It's World War II combat, stripped down to tight, objective-based gameplay, with MG42s, Garands, and just enough Source Engine jank to keep things spicy. It doesn't have a polish or staying power of Counter-Strike, but as a competitive team shooter with some nice historical vibes, it definitely held its own. Just be prepared for servers full of veterans who know every spawn angle since 2005. Sin Episodes was supposed to be a grand comeback, a bold new episodic FPS series that would finally give Half-Life a run for its money. But what we got was one episode. Just one. But hey, it's not bad. The gunplay is solid, the environments are varied, and the AI sometimes pretends it's smart. Jennifer and Alexis' very generous character design didn't exactly scream subtlety, but it sure helped market the game in 2006. It's fun while it lasts, just don't go in expecting a satisfying conclusion, or a second episode. Ever. This is Alien Swarm with a much needed adrenaline shot. Reactive Drop is the community pumped version. More weapons, more missions, more bugs to explode into goo. It's basically Left 4 Dead in space, but with more friendly fire and less forgiveness. There is nothing revolutionary here, but when you grab a few friends and crank the difficulty, the chaos is pure co-op gold. Best of all, it's still free. You really can't complain, unless your squad leaves you behind for the third time in a row. If Day of Defeat and Insurgency got mixed, Day of Infamy would be its historically accurate, slightly janky result. It's got grit, solid gunplay, and a World War II setting that doesn't feel like a Call of Duty cosplay. The gun sounds hit hard, the atmosphere is thick, and matches can get real intense if you find enough people still playing. It never quite reached mainstream appeal, but for fans of tactical shooters with iron sights and no BS, this one's a hidden gem. Infra is what happens when you turn a civil engineer into a walking detective. There's no combat, no enemies, just broken dams, unsafe tunnels, and enough paperwork to crush your soul. It's slow, cerebral, and surprisingly tense, an environment narrative that creeps up on you. It's not for everyone, but if you're the kind of person who gets mad at leaky pipes in video games, Infra will make you feel like Batman, in a hard hat. It's a classic, a chaotic, twitchy arena where toilets become weapons and physics is both your best friend and worst enemy. It's not the deepest multiplayer experience ever made, but it is one of the most purely entertaining, if you enjoy flying radiators to the face. Today it's mostly a ghost town, but there are still some active servers, so it's still possible to find fun in this game. And Gravity Gun plus raw jank gives it timeless charm. It's like a source-powered food fight, and you're the lunch tray. Deadlock is still here. It's still alive, still kicking, and full of potential. It's a fast-paced class-based shooter with jetpacks, teleportation, wall running, time-slowing abilities, basically every cool idea that modern shooters forgot to implement because we were too busy chasing battle passes. The gunplay feels punchy, movement is buttery smooth, and the art style mixes sleek sci-fi with just enough personality to stand out. Game looks like it's still far from release, but Valve is working. They're still updating the game, and even though it doesn't look like there's much content at the moment, but it's still very early. It still feels like an alpha version of the game, it's closed beta, so I played it for 2 hours, and I enjoyed what I saw, and there's a lot of potential, but at the moment, it's hard to understand where the game is gonna be at the final version, so I'm only giving it 27th position now, but who knows, maybe after a year it could be top 20. Only time will tell us. Yeah, this one's a bit of a cheat. It runs on the Source engine, but bends it into a full-blown MMORPG with big anime energy. The combat is flashy, responsive, and way more brutal than you'd expect. You can kick bosses into walls and suplex goblins. It's grindy as hell, sure, and the story isn't really anything interesting, but the action makes up for it. Source never looked this shiny again. And honestly, it's still fun if you got the patience for the free-to-play treadmill. This one is basically a glorified controller tech demo, but it's Valve, so it's also funny and polished and way more enjoyable than it has any right to be. It lets you return to the Portal universe just long enough to remember how much you miss it. Is it short? Absolutely. But for 30 minutes, you get to build toilets with guns while J.K. Simmons is yelling at you. And frankly, that's a better pitch than most AAA games these days. This one's not so much a game as it is a therapy session disguised as a walking simulator. And somehow, it works. The beginner's guide is a deeply personal, strange, and sometimes uncomfortable meta-narrative about creation, insecurity, and the relationship between artists and their audience. You won't find combat or puzzles here, just levels that feel like wandering through someone's fragile mind, while a narrator overshares like he's had 3 glasses of wine. It's divisive, but if it hits you, it hits hard. If not, hey, at least it's short. Okay, Dark Messiah. The game where you can kick a man into a spike trap, then throw a crate at his friend, then accidentally light yourself on fire with a rogue fireball. This game is janky medieval chaos, but in the best way. The physics are hilarious, the combat is weighty, and the source engine was really pushed here. Like, they somehow made wooden crates feel violent. It's rough around the edges, and the story is pretty forgettable. But for sheer ragdoll joy and melee mayhem, still one of the most fun first-person action games ever made. It's Half-Life 2, but shorter. That's really the pitch. Episode 1 is solid. Great pacing, refined combat, and more Alex banter than you probably needed. It doesn't reach the heights of the original or episode 2, but it does everything well and reminds you why Half-Life was such a big deal in the first place. It just feels a bit like Valve dropped a DLC and called it a new era. Still, there is no shame in being just more Half-Life. That's like complaining your second beer tastes too much like beer. No other game on this list is as broken and beloved as Bloodlines. It launched with insane amount of bugs, but underneath the jank is one of the most atmospheric, well-written RPGs ever made. The world building is phenomenal, the quests are unforgettable, and the character writing still holds up like a vampire in a trench coat in a sunlight. With unofficial patches, it transforms from a barely functioning cult mess to a genuine classic. It's flawed and it's brilliant. It's iconic, and it almost made the top 20. Almost. The new kid on the block. Counter-Strike 2 is basically Valve saying, what if we made CSGO prettier? The gunplay is tighter, the visuals are crisp, and the smoke grenades are now basically sentient beings that react to bullets. It's a huge technical leap, but it's also ironing out the kinks. Some people swear it's the best CS has ever felt. Others want to throw their mouse out the window because their favorite strats don't work anymore. Either way, it's the next era of Counter-Strike, and even with its rough edges, it's earned its place in the top 20. Insurgency is what you play if you love shooters, but wish they were way more stressful. It's hardcore, lethal, and all about teamwork. One bullet can ruin your day, and screaming over voice chat because someone forgot to cover the flank is half the experience. It looks solid for its age, the gun feel is excellent, and it's one of the few games that makes even the act of peeking around a corner feel terrifying. It's not for everyone. Casual players bounce off hard, but for those who crave that gritty, realistic vibe, Insurgency is still a banger. Okay, this one's gonna be controversial. Dear Esther is the game that practically invented the term walking simulator. No combat, no puzzles, just haunting narration, moody landscapes, and a whole lot of existential dread. It's beautiful, poetic, and emotionally heavy, or boring as hell, depending on your tolerance for artsy games. I respect what it did for storytelling in games. even if I secretly fell asleep during one of my playthroughs. Love it or hate it, Dear Esther left a mark on gaming, and that's worth a spot in the top 20. The middle child of Counter-Strike family. Counter-Strike Source took the classic CS formula and slapped it onto the shiny new Source engine back in 2004. It introduced better physics, smoother visuals, and ragdolls so floppy they became memes. Purists will argue it's not as good as 1.6, and modern players will stick with CSGO or CS2. But Source? It still has a special place in FPS history. It's fast, tight, and as competitive as ever, even if the player's base has shrunk. Respect where it's due. Without Source, the series might not have evolved into what it is today. Yeah, Titanfall technically sneaks into this list thanks to the Source engine under its hood, albeit a highly modified one. This game was Respawn's big FU to Call of Duty, and it shows. Wall running, giant mechs, crashing from orbit, guns that basically auto-aim for you. It's pure chaos, and smooth as butter. The only downside? It launched as a multiplayer-only title, and the player base dried up faster than my patience for microtransactions. Still, Titanfall set the groundwork for one of the best shooters of the modern era. It deserves respect, and a permanent spot in the "Why the hell did you abandon this EA" Hall of Fame. This is the story of a man named Stanley. And it's also the story of every gamer who ever thought they had free will. The Stanley Parable is brilliant. It's also hilarious and existentially horrifying all at once. It's a walking simulator that roasts you for following instructions, or for not following instructions. The narrator is pure gold, the humor lands almost every time, and there are more endings than there are conspiracy theories about Half-Life 3. Whether you played the original mod or the deluxe edition, it's one of the best examples of how games can be art and comedy, all rolled into one. Left 4 Dead is where Valve said, hey, what if zombies, but with friends, and also the AI is trying to make your life hell? The concept is genius. Post-survivors battling waves of infected across cinematic maps with an AI director tweaking the tension to keep you on edge. It's frantic, hilarious, and absolutely perfect for co-op. Even the jank adds to the charm when you're screaming because your friend startled the witch for the third time. It's not quite as big as Left 4 Dead 2, but it laid the foundation for some of the best co-op chaos ever made. A classic for a good reason. Here's the episode that made us all scream, "Oh cool! Half-Life 3 is definitely coming soon." Spoiler, it didn't. Episode 2 is the peak of Half-Life storytelling and pacing. It's got epic outdoor environments, emotional character moments, and some of the series' best set pieces. The antlion caves are tense as hell, the hunter fights are pure stress, and that ending? Still devastating after all these years. It's shorter than a full game, but Valve packed so much quality into every minute. It's Half-Life distilled, and it leaves you craving the conclusion we still haven't gotten. Black Mesa is the ultimate fan remake that somehow ended up feeling more official than the original. Crowbar Collective took Half-Life 1, shoved it into the Source engine, and rebuilt everything. New maps, new voice acting, and completely revamped Xen that doesn't feel like Alien Purgatory. It's faithful, but modern, and shows how much love the original game still inspires. Sure, there's a few rough edges, and some people complain it runs long. But who cares? This is the way to experience Half-Life if you weren't there in '98, or even if you were. Pure respect. CSGO, the shooter that swallowed the entire world's spare time, lunch money, and sometimes their entire life savings on digital knives. This is the game that took the Counter-Strike formula, polished it to a mirror shine, and became a global phenomenon. The gameplay is legendary, the skill ceiling is terrifying, and the economy-driven gameplay keeps every round tense as hell. It's not perfect. Cheaters exist. So many cheaters. And don't even get me started on matchmaking toxicity. But it's one of the purest competitive FPS experiences ever made. Plus, it gave us the greatest esport memes of all time. Legendary stuff. No game in history has given us more memes, weird experiments, and horrifying ragdoll poses than Gary's mod. It started as a physics sandbox mod and evolved into an infinite playground where you can build, code, pose, and generally commit digital crimes against humanity. It's the reason Prop Hunt exists. It's the birthplace of countless machinima videos, cursed SFM animations, and servers you probably shouldn't tell your mom about. It's chaotic, brilliant, and somehow still alive and kicking after all these years. Truly one of the Source Engine's greatest gifts to humanity. Or maybe its biggest curse. From a Warcraft 3 custom map to a multi-million-dollar esport. Dota 2 is an absolute beast. It's complex, punishing, and has a super steep learning curve. But once it sinks its hooks into you, it's hard to let go. The hero variety is insane. The mechanics are deep enough to study like a PhD, and the competitive scene still dishes out prize pools bigger than most Hollywood movies. It's also responsible for millions of broken keyboards and at least a few existential crises. Love it or hate it, Dota 2 is one of Source Engine's crowning achievements, and it's earned every inch of this spot. This was a triumph. And yes, Portal was exactly that. Released as basically a bonus in the orange box, this tiny game came out of nowhere and redefined what clever game design looks like. It's short, sharp, and absolutely brilliant. It's a perfect mix of puzzles, physics, and dark humor delivered by one of gaming's greatest villains, GLaDOS. Is it a bit bare bones compared to its sequel? Sure, but it's pure genius condensed into 2 hours, and it left an entire generation muttering, "The cake is a lie." Would have thought one of the best battle royales on Earth runs on the Source Engine. Apex Legends is fast, slick, and somehow manages to be both accessible and sweater than a sauna in July. The movement is buttery smooth, the gameplay feels fantastic, and every legend brings unique flavor to the chaos. It's the reason we all started pinging everything in real life. Sure, the monetization can be a bit predatory, and sometimes it feels like Respawn forgets older legends exist. But when you're wall jumping and shredding a whole squad, chef's kiss. It's modern Source Engine magic. Portal 2 took everything great about the original and injected it with steroids, British humor, and brilliant new mechanics. You've got gels that bounce you sky high, lasers that make you feel like a genius, and the story is so good it belongs on Netflix. But please, don't let Netflix adapt it. Steven Merchant as Beatley is pure comedy gold, and the puzzles strike that perfect balance between "Whoa, I'm smart" and "I need a nap." It's bigger, funnier, and somehow even more iconic than the first game. One of Valve's absolute best. Few games have delivered as many friendship-ending moments or as many perfect co-op memories as Left 4 Dead 2. It took the original formula and cranked it up to 11. More weapons, more infected types, more chaos. Every level feels like a horror movie. The AI director keeps you guessing, and mod support ensures you'll be shooting Teletubbies instead of zombies if that's your vibe. It's frantic, endlessly replayable, and still the king of co-op shooters all these years later. Whether you're bashing heads with frying pans or screaming about a tank, Left 4 Dead 2 remains legendary. There's never been anything quite like Team Fortress 2. It's part shooter, part cartoon, part elaborate hat economy that's probably worth more than my flat. Every class oozes personality, from the charmingly insane Pyro to the spy with basically French James Bond. The maps are iconic, the voice lines are legendary, and somehow this 2007 game is still alive and kicking. Sure, it's had its dark times, bots, neglect, Valve occasionally forgetting it exists, but TF2 remains one of the purest expressions of fun ever built in the Source engine. And come on, who doesn't love yelling MEDIC every 5 seconds? Respawn's magnum opus, and the biggest proof that EA sometimes has no idea what it's sitting on. Titanfall 2 is a miracle of fluid movement, tight shooting, and a giant robot mayhem. The single-player campaign is an all-timer, blending inventive mechanics with storytelling that punches you right in the feelings. Multiplayer? A perfect cocktail of wall running, grappling hooks, and dropping mechs from orbit to crush your enemies. It's Source engine magic on a whole new level, and the fact it didn't become the biggest shooter on Earth is still one of gaming's biggest crimes. Respect to everyone keeping those servers alive. The crown jewel of VR gaming, Half-Life Alyx is the game that finally proved VR wasn't just a novelty for tech bros and Beat Saber stans. It's visually stunning, meticulously crafted, and terrifying enough to make you physically flinch when a headcrab lunges at your face. Every interaction feels so real, from rummaging through drawers for ammo to writing help on windows with a marker. The story bridges gaps, teases the future of a franchise, and leaves you desperate for more. Even if you don't own a headset, Alyx deserves the spot. It's one of the Source engine's finest technical achievements and pure gaming magic. Here it is, the king, the GOAT, the reason the Source engine exists in the first place. Half-Life 2 changed the damn game. Its physics were revolutionary, its storytelling was seamless, and it introduced characters we still quote 2 decades later. From the first glimpse of City 17 to the chaos of Ravenholm, it's a ride that never loses its impact. It's not just a great Source engine game, it's one of the greatest games ever made, period. And until Valve decides to count to 3, Half-Life 2 sits proudly at the top of this list, crowbar in its hand. And that's it, folks. We've officially ranked every single Source engine game I could get my hands on. From absolute shovelware disasters to some of the greatest games ever made. It's been a wild ride full of memes, physics glitches, and the eternal question of why can't Valve count to 3? I've got plenty more engines to conquer and plenty more digital trauma waiting for me in the depths of Steam. So tell me, which rankings would you change? Did I disrespect your favorite? Did I put something too high? Too low? Or not roasted hard enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Also, please like the video, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. Because trust me, we still have a lot of engines to check out. And hey, if you want to help keep this chaos going, consider joining the channel. You'll get 1 week early access to videos, priority on your suggestions, and also your name in the credits as one of the legends making these videos possible. And speaking of suggestions, let me know what you want me to rank next. Other engines? Maybe game franchises? Maybe the worst gaming peripherals ever made? I'm down for anything. Thanks for watching, thanks for all the support, and remember, even the worst Source game still owes its existence to Half-Life 2. And that's kind of beautiful. See you in the next one.